AI automation agency looks like it just sells a chatbot and calls it done. Build a workflow, hand it over, collect one invoice, and move on to the next client. But the real business rarely ends the moment that first automation gets delivered. Most people assume an AI agency earns money simply by building one custom project. A business wants automation, the agency builds it, charges a fee, project complete. That explanation feels reasonable, since a finished chatbot or workflow is the visible deliverable. Client pays for the build, agency delivers the build, transaction closed, moving forward. It would make sense if that one-time project fee was the entire business model. Agencies quote a build price, often a few $1,000s for a first automation. That price covers design, setup, testing, and the initial handoff to the client. It seems like a straightforward transaction: one project, one invoice, one payment. But most agencies do not survive on single, isolated builds happening once in a while. One-time project fee barely covers the sales cost of winning that client at all. If the build fee alone explained the business, margins would be thinner than they actually are. Successful automation agencies build something sturdier than a single project handoff. The real business sits in what happens quietly after that first automation ships. Almost none of it has to do with the one-time price tag on the build. Every engagement starts with a discovery phase, mapping exactly what the client's business needs. That discovery alone is billed separately in many agencies before any building even begins. It protects the agency's time, and it filters out clients who are not serious yet. Once scope is defined, the agency quotes a fixed project fee for the actual build. That fee covers designing the workflow, connecting the tools, and testing the automation thoroughly. Pricing a build is part art and part risk management, since scope can quietly expand. A client request that seems small can add hours of unplanned work during development. Experienced agencies price in a buffer specifically to absorb that inevitable scope creep. The build fee often looks large to a client seeing one chatbot or one workflow, but it has to cover research, iteration, and troubleshooting that never becomes visible to them. Some agencies charge a flat fee, others charge based on estimated hours of development. Flat fees reward efficient agencies, since a faster build still earns the full quoted price. That efficiency incentive is exactly why experienced agencies systemize their build process aggressively. A templated approach to a common automation type can be delivered far faster than custom work. The client still pays close to full price, even though the agency's own cost dropped. That gap between delivery cost and quoted price is where real project margin actually lives. The build fee was never simply pricing the hours, it was pricing expertise and speed. A new agency without that speed often prices lower, just to compete for the same client. Established agencies protect their pricing precisely because their delivery time keeps shrinking, quietly. That is the entire game behind the one-time setup fee. In almost every serious agency, price the outcome, not the hours, and margin grows as delivery speed improves internally. The setup fee is the entry point, not the actual foundation of the business. Every AI automation runs on top of underlying technology the agency does not actually own. Language models, automation platforms, and integration tools all charge their own usage-based fees. The agency pays those underlying costs, then bills the client a marked-up monthly amount. That markup is rarely itemized clearly, folded instead into one simple monthly service charge. A client sees one predictable bill, unaware of exactly how much sits underneath as raw cost. This mirrors a pattern found across many technology reselling businesses, not unique to this industry. The agency essentially becomes a wholesale buyer of infrastructure, reselling it at a retail markup. Volume matters here, since agencies serving many clients negotiate better rates from underlying platforms. A larger agency can absorb infrastructure costs more efficiently than a single freelancer ever could. That efficiency gap becomes a genuine pricing advantage over smaller, less established competitors. Some agencies pass raw infrastructure costs through with a modest fee, prioritizing trust over margin. Others price a flat monthly rate regardless of actual usage, betting average usage stays predictable. That second approach can be highly profitable for lighter users, and less so for heavy ones. Managing that usage risk quietly becomes a core skill inside every serious automation agency. As underlying technology costs fall over time, that markup spread often quietly widens further. Client pricing rarely drops at the same pace the agency's own underlying costs decline. That gap is normal business behavior, not deception, the same margin logic retailers use everywhere. Some clients eventually ask to move to their own direct account with the underlying platform. Agencies handle that request differently. Some cooperate freely. Others build in switching friction. That friction, when it exists, quietly protects the agency's ongoing markup revenue for longer. None of this markup is visible on the simple monthly invoice a client actually receives. It is quietly one of the steadiest, least discussed revenue sources in the entire industry. Once an automation goes live, it does not simply run forever without any further attention. Systems break, integrations shift, and underlying platforms update in ways that require adjustment. Most agencies sell an ongoing monthly retainer specifically to monitor and maintain that system. That retainer covers fixing errors, adjusting workflows, and keeping everything running smoothly, monthly. Unlike the one-time build fee, this retainer renews automatically, month after month, indefinitely. Single client paying a few $100s monthly seems small next to one large build fee. But that retainer compounds across dozens of active clients into serious, predictable monthly revenue. Predictable recurring revenue is genuinely more valuable to a business than one-time project income. It lets an agency plan staffing, forecast cash flow, and grow with far more confidence. Some agencies deliberately price the initial build fee lower, almost as a loss leader. The real profit target is winning that client onto a long-term maintenance retainer instead. That strategy only works if the client actually experiences real, ongoing value from the retainer. Retainer that delivers nothing new quickly gets cancelled, since automation mostly runs itself. Smart agencies use retainer time to continuously improve the system, not just watch it run. New features, expanded automations, and small optimizations justify that monthly fee, month after month. That constant incremental improvement is what separates a sticky retainer from an easily cancelled one. Clients who see visible, ongoing improvement rarely shop around for a cheaper competing agency. That retention advantage is worth more than any single month's retainer payment on its own. Agencies track retainer churn closely, since losing clients quietly erodes recurring revenue over time. Healthy agency adds new retainer clients faster than existing ones cancel, consistently, every quarter. That net growth in recurring revenue is the real health metric behind a growing agency. The retainer, not the build fee, is what actually determines an agency's long-term value. Every custom build teaches an agency something reusable, even when a client believes it is unique. Common automation patterns repeat constantly across different clients in similar industries or business types. Booking confirmation workflow for one business often transfers, with light changes, to a similar one. Experienced agencies quietly build an internal library of these reusable templates over time. That library dramatically cuts the time needed to deliver a similar project for a new client. The client still receives what feels like a fully custom build, tailored to their business. But internally, the agency assembled it largely from pre-built, tested, proven components already. That efficiency lets the agency quote competitive prices while still protecting healthy delivery margins. A new agency without that template library has to build everything slower, from scratch, every time. That speed gap becomes a genuine competitive advantage that compounds with every project delivered. Some agencies eventually productize their most popular templates into standalone, packaged offerings entirely. A packaged offering can be sold with less customization, at a lower price, to more clients. That shift moves the business from pure custom service work towards something closer to software. Software-like offerings scale further. Delivery cost per additional client keeps shrinking over time. The most sophisticated agencies eventually blend both models, custom builds and productized offerings, together. Custom builds fund the high-margin project fees. Productized offerings fund efficient, scalable growth. That combination lets an agency serve both large enterprise clients and smaller businesses profitably. The reusable template library, quietly, becomes one of the agency's most valuable long-term assets. It is rarely mentioned to clients directly, since they are paying for a solution, not a shortcut. But that internal shortcut is exactly what makes healthy margins possible at meaningful scale. Every new project adds a little more value to a library that outlasts any single client. The templates, not any single automation, are what the agency is quietly building toward. Agencies do not just build with software platforms, many also formally partner with them directly. Software companies often run affiliate or reseller programs specifically targeting agencies like these. When an agency recommends a specific tool to a client, that tool sometimes pays a commission. That commission can be a one-time referral bonus or an ongoing percentage of the subscription value. None of this commission comes out of the client's own pocket directly, in most cases. It is paid by the software platform itself as a cost of acquiring that new customer. That arrangement creates a quiet incentive for agencies to recommend partner tools over unpartnered ones. But the incentive is real, and it quietly shapes which platforms get recommended most often. Some agencies formalize this into becoming an official certified partner of a specific major platform. That certification often comes with training, co-marketing support, and improved commission rates over time. Being a certified partner also signals credibility to prospective clients evaluating which agency to hire. That credibility can win new business independent of the commission revenue itself, entirely. Larger agencies sometimes hold partnerships with multiple platforms, each covering a different automation need. That diversified partnership stack quietly adds a steady stream of commission income across every client. None of it requires any additional delivery work beyond what the agency was already doing. It is close to pure margin, layered on top of every other revenue stream already in place. Agencies rarely advertise this income source, since it sits quietly behind every tool recommendation made. Over a full year, across many clients, these commissions can add up to real, meaningful revenue. It's one of the least visible, most efficient income sources in the entire industry. Structurally, the recommendation itself becomes a small product, sold quietly, project after project, client after client. That is a very different kind of revenue than the visible invoice a client actually sees. Not every client wants to be fully hands-off once an automation gets delivered. Some want their own staff trained to understand, monitor, and lightly adjust the system themselves. Agencies sell that training as a separate offering, priced apart from the original build fee. Structured workshop, documentation, and live walkthrough sessions all carry their own additional price tag. This appeals especially to larger clients with internal teams who want some ongoing internal ownership. Training does not compete with the retainer. It actually often strengthens that same client relationship. Well-trained internal team still relies on the agency for anything genuinely complex or new. That balance keeps the client engaged without making them fully dependent on the agency alone. Some agencies package broader strategy consulting around automation, not just the technical build itself. That consulting addresses which processes are even worth automating before any building begins at all. Strategic clarity work like that commands premium pricing, since it shapes the client's larger roadmap. It also naturally leads into future build projects, since strategy work reveals new automation opportunities. That is why many agencies treat consulting as a relationship starting point, not a standalone product. A consulting engagement today often becomes a build project next quarter, and a retainer after that. Selling consulting first is a quieter, lower-pressure way to begin a larger client relationship. Some clients only ever buy the training or consulting, never the full build, and that is fine too. That segment still contributes real revenue, even without ever becoming a full retainer client. Diversifying across build, retainer, training, and consulting protects the agency from over-relying on one stream. A slow month for new builds can be offset by steady consulting or training revenue instead. That diversification is quietly one of the healthiest structural traits a growing agency can have. None of these offerings individually look massive, but together they smooth out revenue significantly. The agency is not just selling automation, It is selling several related services around the same expertise. Single-skilled automation builder can only personally deliver so many projects in a month. The largest agencies solve that ceiling with a very specific internal staffing structure, deliberately. Senior staff handle sales, strategy, and the most complex, high-value technical problems directly. Junior staff execute the more repeatable, templated portions of each build under close supervision. That structure lets one senior expert effectively oversee far more total client work than alone. It mirrors how larger consulting and service firms have scaled successfully for decades, broadly. Junior staff often cost 50% less than senior experts, billing at a similar client rate. That gap between junior cost and client billing rate is where a large share of agency profit lives. Training junior staff well is what makes this entire leverage model actually work reliably. Poorly trained junior team creates costly mistakes that erase any margin advantage almost instantly. The reusable template library becomes essential here too, giving junior staff a proven starting point. That combination, templates plus trained juniors, is what lets agencies scale past just one skilled founder. Some agencies eventually productize their delivery process into something closer to a repeatable system entirely. New hires onboard against documented processes, rather than learning everything informally from a senior mentor. That documentation itself becomes a valuable asset, letting the agency scale without losing quality control. Larger agencies also invest in their own internal tools to speed up repetitive parts of delivery. Those internal tools compound the same efficiency advantage the reusable template library already provides. None of that scale story is visible to a client simply hiring the agency for one project. It just looks like working with a knowledgeable team, backed by a much larger delivery operation. That invisible infrastructure is quietly what separates a growing agency from a single freelance builder. Scale here is not about working harder. It is about designing a system other people can execute well. That system, more than any single automation, is the real business being built over time. This entire business depends on one quiet assumption, that businesses will keep needing outside help. The underlying AI tools themselves keep getting easier for an average business owner to use directly. Some platforms now offer simple, guided setup that barely requires any technical expertise at all. That accessibility threatens the most basic, most commoditized automation work agencies used to rely on. A business owner who once needed an agency can now sometimes build a simple workflow themselves. That shift particularly threatens agencies competing purely on basic, easily replicated automation projects. Competition among agencies themselves has also increased sharply, as the barrier to starting one dropped. Anyone with some technical skill can launch an agency with very little upfront capital required. That low barrier floods the market with agencies competing heavily on price for similar basic work. Underlying AI model costs have fallen by more than 70% in some cases recently. As raw costs drop, competitive pressure eventually forces client pricing down as well, over time. Clients have grown more sophisticated too, understanding roughly what these systems should actually cost. That knowledge makes it harder for agencies to maintain unclear, heavily marked up monthly pricing. Platform companies themselves are also building more native automation features directly into their own products. That native functionality sometimes replaces exactly the kind of custom work agencies used to sell. Client churn has become a real risk too, since switching automation providers is easier than expected. Well-documented systems, ironically, make it easier for a client to eventually take work in-house. Some agencies have responded by moving further upmarket, targeting larger, more complex enterprise clients. Those clients need genuine strategic expertise that basic self-serve tools still cannot fully replace. Others are leaning harder into their reusable template library and delivery speed as a differentiator. Being measurably faster and more reliable than a client's own internal team remains a real advantage. Regulation around AI use and data handling has also grown more complex in many industries. Navigating that complexity has become its own valuable service some agencies now specialize in offering. None of these pressures are fatal to the industry on their own, taken individually. But together, They are quietly forcing agencies to prove value beyond simply connecting a few tools together. The agencies adapting fastest are combining genuine strategic expertise with fast, reliable technical delivery. Others are narrowing their focus, specializing deeply in one industry instead of staying broadly generalist. The industry is slowly shifting from selling access to AI tools towards selling judgment about them. Access to the tools themselves is quickly becoming commoditized, available to almost anyone, cheaply. Staying profitable now requires being genuinely hard to replace, not just fast at connecting software. So here is the real model, stripped down to what actually keeps an AI agency profitable. It was never simply about building one chatbot and collecting one straightforward project fee. It is about the discovery and build fee, priced for speed built over many past projects. The markup on underlying tool costs quietly adds steady margin most clients never see clearly. The monthly retainer turns a one-time project into predictable, compounding recurring revenue over time. Usable templates quietly become the agency's most valuable, most efficiency-driving long-term asset. Software partner commissions add close to pure margin behind every tool the agency recommends. Training and consulting upsells diversify revenue while deepening the same core client relationship. Scale through trained junior staff and documented systems lets one expert's judgment reach far more clients. None of these pieces work particularly well in isolation. They compound across every single client relationship. That is why an industry that looks like simple chatbot building runs on genuinely layered economics. The automation was never really the full product being sold from the very first project onward. The real product was judgment, speed, reusable systems, and a relationship built to keep renewing. Easier self-serve tools and heavier competition are starting to test how essential that judgment really is. The agencies that survive that shift will be the ones hardest to simply replace with software alone. Everyone else sees a business that builds chatbots and workflows, nothing more complicated than that. The person who built the agency sees a system of fees, retainers, templates, and partnerships. That is the gap between simple tool building and a genuinely sophisticated, layered service business. Next time an agency pitches you an automation, remember what is actually behind that one proposal. Years of templates, partnerships, and delivery systems most businesses could never quickly build themselves. That system, not the single chatbot in the proposal, is what the fee is really paying for. The automation was never the product, the system behind it always was.